You ever wonder how we got here? How an entire generation can look at their kids drowning in debt, anxiety, and systemic dysfunction and still say, just work harder? This isn't just a generational gap. It's a philosophical chasm. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to break down exactly how boomer parenting didn't just miss the mark, it rewired the social contract, and we're the ones paying the price. Let's get into it. Boomers love to complain about the younger generations. That's their favorite sport. They'll sit on a paid off house with a pension, social security, and a 401k and still find a way to talk down to someone working two jobs just to afford rent. And here's the kicker: they raised us, they shaped the world we live in. But when we struggle, they act like we just didn't try hard enough, like we're lazy, like we're entitled. No, what we are is exhausted. We're exhausted from trying to live up to a standard that doesn't exist anymore. They say we're soft, but they're the ones who had affordable college, stable jobs, and homes that didn't cost $500,000. They had the wind at their backs, and now they're mad we can't fly with bricks tied to our ankles. Boomers are the kings and queens of tough love, but it's not love. It's detachment dressed up as discipline. They'll watch their kids drown and call it swimming lessons. They think it's still 1965. Like you can just walk into a factory, ask for a job, and walk out with a pension and a path to a mortgage. They don't get that the economy they thrived in doesn't exist anymore. And when you try to explain that, they shut down. They don't want to hear it. They learned what they think they needed to know 50 years ago and haven't updated the software since they're stuck in a time loop. And they expect us to play along. You tell a boomer you're struggling and they scoff. I worked hard too, lady, they say. I worked 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Yeah, and you got a house, two cars, a boat, and a retirement plan. We were working the same hours and can't even afford a studio apartment. We're doing more with less, and they still act like we're not doing enough. They want grandkids, but they don't want to help. They want the image of a happy family, but they don't want to invest in it. And when we don't deliver, they blame us. Why don't you have kids yet? Because we can't afford them, because we're still trying to survive, because we're still recovering from the emotional damage you handed us. And let's talk about that damage. The second we turn 18, they're ready to kick us out. You're an adult now, figure it out. No guidance, no support, just a boot out the door and a lecture about responsibility. They think forcing independence is the same as preparing someone for it. It's not, it's abandonment. And it's why so many of us are struggling with mental health, with direction, with identity. They atomized the family. They broke it into pieces and called it freedom. But freedom without support is just isolation. And that's what a lot of us are living in: quiet, suffocating isolation. Boomers had it easier. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. They could work a minimum wage job and afford rent. They could go to college without drowning in debt. They could buy a house on one income. That world is gone. But instead of acknowledging that, they gaslight us. You just need to work harder. Life's not fair. Stop complaining. They weaponize stoicism. They treat empathy like weakness, and they wonder why we don't call them anymore. They say we're entitled, but they're the ones who feel entitled to our respect, our time, our energy without earning it. They want us to show up for them, but they never showed up for us. They want us to care, but they didn't. And now, when we set boundaries, when we say enough, they act like we're the problem. No, we're the product of a broken system they helped build. And we're finally waking up to that. There's a reason so many people are cutting off their parents. It's not because we're heartless. It's because we're tired of being hurt, tired of being dismissed, tired of being told our pain isn't real. When someone shows you over and over that they don't care, eventually you believe them and you walk away. That's not cruelty. That's survival. And let's be real, there are good boomers out there. I've met them. You've met them, but they're the exception, not the rule. The dominant boomer mindset is one of selfishness, denial, and superiority. They hoarded wealth, voted for policies that gutted the social safety net, and now they want to act like they're the victims. No, they're not victims. They're architects. And we're living in the house they built with the roof caving in. They don't want to help. They don't want to understand. They just want to be right, even if it means watching their own kids fail. Even if it means watching their grandkids grow up in poverty, they'd rather be right than be kind. They'd rather be proud than be present. And that's why so many of us are done trying to explain, done trying to connect, done trying to earn love that should have been unconditional. They say we're too sensitive, that we need to toughen up. But what they call sensitivity is actually awareness. We see the cracks in the system. We feel the weight of the world they left us. And we're not pretending everything's fine. That's not weakness. That's honesty. That's courage. And they can't handle it. Boomers don't want to talk about mental health. They don't want to talk about trauma. They don't want to talk about anything that makes them uncomfortable. But discomfort is where growth happens. And they stopped growing a long time ago. They chose comfort over connection, control over compassion. And now they're reaping what they sowed: estranged kids, broken families, and a legacy that's more about what they took than what they gave. They think we're ungrateful. But gratitude isn't owed, it's earned. And if you didn't show up, if you didn't support, if you didn't listen, don't expect a thank you. Expect silence, expect distance, expect to be left out, because we're not playing the game anymore. We're not pretending. We're not performing. We're not sacrificing our peace to make you feel better about your failures. And here's the part that really stings: they don't even realize what they're losing. They think they're teaching us a lesson. But the lesson we're learning is that we're better off without them, that we can build our own families, our own communities, ones built on love, support, and mutual respect. Ones where tough love doesn't mean emotional neglect, where boundaries are honored, where vulnerability isn't punished. That's the future we're building, and they can either be a part of it or watch from the sidelines. They say they don't want to give handouts, that people should earn their way, but they inherited a world full of handouts: cheap education, affordable housing, union jobs, and they pulled the ladder up behind them. Now they look down and say, why aren't you climbing? Because you burned the rungs, because you sold them for stock options, because you traded community for capital. And now you want to lecture us about grit? They don't want to talk about how they benefited from policies that excluded others: redlining, segregation, union protections that didn't extend to everyone. They don't want to talk about how they voted against healthcare, against education, against climate action because it didn't affect them. But now it does. Now they're getting older. Now they need care. And suddenly they're realizing that the system they built doesn't care about them either. But instead of admitting they were wrong, they double down. They blame immigrants. They blame the youth. They blame everyone but themselves. And that's the tragedy, because it didn't have to be this way. They could have been the bridge. They could have used their power to lift others up, but they didn't. They hoarded it, and now they're alone, wondering why no one calls, why no one visits, why no one cares. It's not a mystery. It's math. You get back what you give, and they gave nothing. So now we're left to pick up the pieces, to rebuild what they broke, to create a new model of parenting, of community, of care. One that doesn't shame, one that doesn't abandon, one that doesn't confuse control with love. We're not perfect, but at least we're trying. At least we're aware. At least we're willing to grow. And that's the difference. We're not afraid to admit we don't have all the answers. We're not clinging to outdated playbooks or pretending that the world hasn't changed. We're not hiding behind nostalgia or weaponizing our past to invalidate someone else's present. We're not allergic to growth. We're not allergic to accountability. And we're not afraid to say, hey, maybe we got it wrong. Let's do better. That's what separates us. That's what gives me hope. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. Because when you're willing to confront the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, no matter how inconvenient, that's when real transformation begins. And that's what this moment demands. Not more lectures, not more denial, not more back in my day stories that ignore the reality of now. What we need is a new framework, a new model, one that doesn't just recycle the trauma and call it tradition, one that doesn't confuse silence with strength or suffering with virtue, one that doesn't treat love like a transaction or family like a performance. We need to stop pretending that the old ways worked for everyone. They didn't. They worked for some, and they worked at the expense of others. That's not a legacy to protect. That's a warning to learn from. So, what does that look like? It looks like listening, really listening when someone tells you they're struggling. It looks like asking how you can help instead of telling them to toughen up. It looks like showing up, not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. It looks like recognizing that love without support isn't love. It's a liability. It's a hollow promise. It's a performance. And we're done performing. We're done pretending that everything's fine when it's not. We're done sacrificing our mental health, our financial stability, our futures just to maintain the illusion of a family that never really showed up for us. We're building something different now, something real, something rooted in empathy, in accountability, in mutual respect. And yeah, it's messy, it's imperfect, but it's honest. And that honesty is the foundation of something better. Because here's the truth: the world has changed, the economy has changed, the rules have changed, but boomer parenting didn't. It stayed stuck in a time that no longer exists. And instead of adapting, instead of evolving, it doubled down. It clung to control. It clung to pride. It clung to the illusion that if it worked for them, it should work for us, but it doesn't and it won't, because the game is different now. The stakes are different. The costs are higher. The safety nets are gone. The ladders are gone. The rules are rigged, and we're not just playing catch up. We're playing on a field that's tilted against us. And when we say that, when we name that, when we challenge that, we're not being ungrateful. We're being honest. We're being awake. We're being real. And that's what this is about. It's not about blame. It's about truth. It's about accountability. It's about breaking the cycle. Because if we don't, we'll just pass it on. We'll become the very thing we're trying to escape. And that's not an option. Not for me. Not for you. Not for the future we're trying to build. So we're drawing a line. We're setting boundaries. We're saying this ends with us. The emotional neglect, the financial gaslighting, the generational guilt trips, the performative love, all of it, it ends here, because we deserve better. Our kids deserve better. The future deserves better. And if that makes us the bad guys in someone else's story, so be it. If that makes us ungrateful or rebellious or too sensitive, fine. We'll wear that, because we're not here to make boomers feel comfortable. We're here to build something that works, something that heals, something that lasts. And that means telling the truth, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because that's where the healing starts. That's where the change begins. And that's what this moment is calling for. Not more denial, not more silence, not more pretending, but truth, clarity, courage. So if you're watching this and you feel seen, if you've ever felt dismissed, abandoned, gaslit, or guilted by the very people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, know this: you're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're responding to a system that was never designed with your well being in mind. And your pain is valid. Your exhaustion is valid. Your boundaries are valid. And your decision to walk away, to protect your peace, to build something new, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's strength. That's survival. And to the boomers who are listening, really listening, not just waiting to respond or defend or deflect, thank you. Thank you for being open. Thank you for being willing to grow. Thank you for choosing connection over control. Because we need you. We need your wisdom. We need your support. We need your presence. But we need it on new terms, on honest terms, on human terms, not as overlords, not as judges, but as partners, as people, as family. So let's stop pretending. Let's stop performing. Let's stop playing roles that don't fit anymore. And let's start building something real, something rooted in truth, in empathy, in accountability, in love. Because that's the only way forward. That's the only way we heal. That's the only way we win. Now, I want to hear from you. What did you think about what we just unpacked? Do you agree? Do you see it in your own life? Drop a comment below and let's talk about it. Let's keep this conversation going, because this isn't just about one generation. It's about all of us. It's about the future we're building together. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away, and cheers.